This is the closest thing to hell in our solar system. Here, even lead melts into liquid. It does not rain water, but sulfuric acid. Surface temperatures soar to 460 degrees Celsius. The atmospheric pressure is enough to crush a nuclear submarine in an instant. Yet, most ironically, it may have once possessed oceans just like Earth, and perhaps even harbored life. This is Venus, Earth's evil twin. In ancient times, Venus was one of the most familiar celestial bodies to humanity. It is the brightest object in the night sky after the moon. When it appears in the east before dawn, it is known as the morning star. When it hangs in the west after dusk, it is called the evening star. The ancients believed it symbolized beauty and love. The Romans named it after Venus, the goddess of love. However, when humanity finally gained the ability to unveil its secrets, we discovered that this planet named after the goddess of love is actually the most terrifying purgatory in the solar system. Venus is about 108 million kilometers from the Sun, making it the closest planet to Earth. At its nearest point, it is only 40 million kilometers away. Its size is almost identical to Earth's, with a diameter of about 104 kilometers, less than 6% smaller than Earth. Its mass is 82% that of Earth. Because of this striking similarity, scientists were once full of anticipation, believing that this sister planet might possess an environment similar to our own. Early 20th century science fiction writers even imagined Venus as a world, covered in tropical rainforests and primordial swamps. However, the truth is far worse than the darkest nightmare. The average surface temperature on Venus is a scorching 465 degrees Celsius, hot enough to turn metals like lead, tin, and zinc into liquid instantly. This temperature is more than 200 degrees higher than Mercury, which is closer to the Sun. Even more terrifyingly, Venus has no day-to-night temperature difference and no seasonal changes. Whether you are at the equator or the poles, day or night, the temperature remains at this metal melting level. The entire planet is like a giant uniformly heated oven, and there is nowhere to escape. The culprit behind this hellish environment is Venus's suffocating atmosphere. The atmospheric density of Venus is 90 times that of Earth. This means that standing on the surface of Venus, the pressure you would experience is equivalent to being 900 meters deep in Earth's ocean. This pressure could crush any military nuclear submarine into a pancake. What's worse is that 96.5% of this atmosphere is carbon dioxide, with the remainder consisting mostly of nitrogen and various toxic gases. Such a thick concentration of carbon dioxide creates the most extreme greenhouse effect in the solar system. The Sun's heat is locked in, trapped with no way out, turning the entire planet into an eternally burning purgatory. If you could somehow pass through the atmosphere of Venus, you would see a dim orange-yellow world. Thick clouds obscure most of the sunlight, making the surface brightness similar to a cloudy day on Earth. Looking up, you would see no blue sky, no sun, only a dense, oranged firmament, oppressive and suffocating. And within those churning clouds, it is raining the most terrifying rain in the solar system: sulfuric acid. Venus's cloud layer sits 50 to 70 kilometers above the surface, composed primarily of concentrated sulfuric acid droplets. These acid droplets fall continuously from the clouds, corroding everything they touch. However, because the surface temperature is so high, these droplets evaporate completely when they descend to about 25 kilometers above the ground, never reaching the surface. They then rise back to the upper atmosphere to condense again and fall once more. This acid rain cycle has been ongoing for hundreds of millions of years, like a chemical punishment that never ends. The strangeness of Venus does not end there. It is the only planet in the solar system that rotates in retrograde. If you were standing on Ven, on the surface you would see the sun rise in the west and set in the east. This is the exact opposite of Earth and all other planets. Even more bizarrely, it takes Venus a full 243 Earth days to complete one rotation, while its orbit around the Sun takes only 225 Earth days. In other words, a day on Venus is longer than its year. This strange rotation continues to baffle scientists to this day. Some speculate it may have suffered a cataclysmic impact, while others believe that tidal friction from its thick atmosphere gradually slowed it down, perhaps even reversing its rotation entirely. Human exploration of Venus is an epic filled with tragedy and sacrifice. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union made Venus the primary battlefield of the space race. From 1961 to 1984, they launched over 30 probes toward Venus. The fate of these probes was almost identical, either crushed in the atmosphere or melted by extreme heat after landing. Venera 7, in 1970, became the first probe to land successfully, but it survived for only 23 minutes. Venera 9, in 1975, transmitted the first photograph of another planet's surface in human history, surviving for 53 minutes. The longest-lived, Venera 13, lasted only 127 minutes. The photos sent back by Venera 13 remain some of the most stunning images of an alien surface ever captured. In the photos, an orange-yellow sky shrouds a desolate, rocky world. Slabs of basalt are scattered across the surface, and the distant horizon vanishes into thick haze. Parts of the probe's chassis are clearly visible, the final marks left by human civilization on the edge of hell. After 127 minutes, Venera 13 finally succumbed. Its metal shell was softened by the heat, its electronic components destroyed by the pressure, eventually merging into the planet's eternal inferno. Yet, what shocks scientists most is that this hell may once have been a paradise. In 2019, a NASA research team discovered through computer simulations that about 3 billion years ago, the surface of Venus may have been covered by liquid oceans, with temperatures maintained between 20 and 50 degrees Celsius, possibly even harboring conditions for life. At that time, Venus was likely much like a young Earth, a blue habitable world. About 700 million years ago, disaster struck. Intense volcanic activity released massive amounts of carbon dioxide, triggering a runaway greenhouse effect. As oceans evaporated, water vapor further intensified the atmospheric heat retention. More heat was trapped, temperatures continued to climb, and more seawater evaporated. Once this vicious cycle began, it could not be stopped. Scientists call this a runaway greenhouse effect. Ultimately, Venus transformed from a potentially habitable world into the hellscape we see today, where even lead melts. In 2021, scientists detected the presence of phosphine gas in the clouds of Venus. On Earth, phosphine is typically associated with biological activity. This discovery immediately caused a sensation. Could it be that in those churning sulfuric acid clouds, high above Venus, some form of resilient life is truly drifting? Although this finding was later questioned, it reignited humanity's passion for exploring Venus. NASA and ESA have approved several new Venus missions, planning to return to this forgotten hellish planet around 2030. Venus acts like a warning mirror from the cosmos. It is so similar to Earth, yet it met a vastly different fate. With its 465-degree heat, 90 times the atmospheric pressure, and relentless sulfuric acid rain, it tells us that the distance between heaven and hell might be nothing more than a runaway greenhouse effect. As we look up at the night sky, at that brightest morning star, when we gaze up at the night sky, at that brightest morning star, what we see is not only the most beautiful purgatory in the solar system, but also an abyss that Earth must forever remain vigilant against. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through science, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. See you in the next exploration with Quantara Atlas.